On episode 690 of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, we bring back Dr. Stephen Gundry and discuss his book, The Gut-Brain Paradox: Improve Your Mood, Clear Brain Fog, and Reverse Disease by Healing Your Microbiome. Welcome to the 40 Plus Fitness podcast, the largest and longest running health and fitness podcast dedicated to people over 40. Whether you're looking to lose weight, get stronger, or improve your health and age better, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Coach Allan, an online health and fitness coach and author of The Wellness Roadmap. Each week, we dive into practical tips, expert advice, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and fitness. If you're ready to look, feel, and perform your best, no matter your age, this podcast is the perfect place to start. Let's get you on the path to a healthier, fitter, and more energetic version of yourself. I hope you'll join us each week, and together we can unlock your full potential. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the 40 Plus Fitness podcast. I'm excited today to be bringing back Dr. Gundry to discuss his new book. He's an excellent author. The books are always great. This one is no exception. So I know you're going to enjoy this conversation, and you should probably get the book if you're a reader. It's a great book. But I'm also excited to be announcing something I'm launching. You may recall, if you've been following for a while, that I did the Health Blocker quiz. That was a quiz I did almost 3 years ago, and it was great. It's done a lot of good for a lot of people. It's still there, so you could take it again if you want to. But this new quiz is more focused in the line of kind of where I'm in a direction I'm going for my personal health and fitness and with some of my clients. And it's really about living longer better. So I call the quiz the Long Life Readiness Quiz. It takes about 2 minutes. It's absolutely free. And with the quiz, you'll get your lifelong readiness score, and you'll get some guidance. There's an ebook that you'll get. It'll talk about what your score is and what you can do to get better and improve and to fix, basically optimize. So wherever you are on the spectrum of long life readiness, this will give you some tools to start moving forward. You can find that quiz at 40plusfitness.com/LLRQ. Again, that's 40plusfitness.com/LLRQ. I'm really proud of the work that I've done. It's taken me almost 4 months to put this thing together and get it organized the way I want to. And it goes into a program that I'm going to be launching in a few weeks. And, so basically what you learn from here can help you move forward. And then a lot of the things that I'll be talking about that you'll hear about will be related to that new program. So, but you can get the quiz. It's absolutely free. It takes just a couple minutes. It's a great investment of your time. Go to 40plusfitness.com/LLRQ. Our guest today is the director of the International Heart and Lung Institute in Palm Springs, California, and the founder and director of the Center for Restorative Medicine in Palm Springs and Santa Barbara. After a distinguished surgical career as a professor and chairman of cardiothoracic surgery at Loma Linda University, he changed his focus to curing modern diseases via dietary changes. His best-selling books include Brain Drain, Gut Check, Unlocking the Keto Code, The Energy Paradox, The Plant Paradox, and The Longevity Paradox. He has written more than 300 articles published in peer-reviewed journals on using diet and supplements to eliminate heart disease, diabetes, autoimmune disease, and multiple other diseases. With no further ado, here's Dr. Stephen Gundry. Dr. Gundry, welcome back to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thanks. Great to be back, and thanks for having me on.
Now, your book is called The Gut-Brain Paradox: Improve Your Mood, Clear Brain Fog, and Reverse Disease by Healing Your Microbiome. One of the things I have to say about your books is you do such an amazing job of explaining really complex biology. And you just do it. I mean, like, I'm reading it, I'm like, I wish this was how it was written the first time I read it. I would know so much more today if that had been the case. You just do such a great job. You go through the book and it's technical. There's a lot in there, but that biology, knowing that, actually helps you understand why this is important and what it actually means, so you can make the right decisions for your health and your mood.
Well, thanks. I guess I'm an explainer in chief or something like that. But I've always enjoyed taking complex topics and simplifying them. One of the reasons is I still see patients 6 days a week. They cover all gamuts of life, and I need to distill it into actionable, understandable items. So I guess it works.
It works. It works. I love the books. Thank you so much for letting me have opportunity to have this conversation with you. Now, I remember back in the day when we first started talking about the gut microbiome and how it was important and how we were killing it. And then you start talking about bugs on the skin. You start talking about bugs, in your lungs and bugs in your brain. We got a lot of bugs.
A lot of bugs.
And the term you used, was it holobiome?
Yeah, holobiome.
Okay.
I think that's the right term to use. Unfortunately, the microbiome has become the standard. But the microbiome was originally used to describe the bacteria that live in our gut. But as science has advanced, we now know that these guys, and that includes viruses and fungi, live virtually anywhere we communicate with the outside world. So, like, for instance, women's breast ducts have bacteria. Men's prostates have bacteria. And so on and so forth. So and we literally, and I've talked about this before, have a bacterial cloud around us, very much like, who was it on Peanuts who had the bacterial cloud around him? Anyhow, so that whole set, I think, is best called a holobiome.
Yeah. And it's not just bugs hanging out, being bugs. They do a lot for us, and they communicate.
Yeah. That's what's, in a way, hard for very high advanced creatures like ourselves to get our arms around, that single cell organisms can have, for lack of a better word, intelligence. And that these single cell organisms can see their surroundings. They can count the number of organisms nearby them. They can identify whether another organism is a friend or a foe. They can manipulate other organisms with sometimes diabolical ways. So these guys are a lot more complex than we ever gave them credit for. And quite frankly, the book pleads that we should give them a lot of credit for what's happening for us and also what's happening against us.
Yeah, the way I kind of think about it is like ones and zeros. Not a complex thing, but that's exactly how you program a computer.
Yep.
So something as simple as is it on or is it off? And that kind of signaling is enough to actually, when it's all put together, have a full program that tells us what we do, how we live, what we feel, how sick we are, what our mood is. All of that.
Yeah.
Now, one of the sad things, as I was going through the book, this thought hit me. There's a lot of talk about climate crisis and what we're doing to the planet and the pollution and the, microplastics and all that. We've basically done the same thing to our body. Yeah,
you're right. This is, I started talking about this years ago, and I don't know, it never caught on, but this is climate change within us. And it's the exact same effect that we see externally in climate change. We have precipitated just the worst possible climate change within us. And we're paying the price, just like most of us think we're paying the price externally as well.
And so the terms we use for that, we call it dysbiosis and leaky gut. Can you talk a little bit about those? Because we talk about them, but it's sort of like, well, that's what someone else has. But
Yeah.
and we only really think about like irritable bowel syndrome or something like that, or some autoimmune disease comes up, and that's when we start thinking, well, that's why this is a problem. That, this is what caused it. But it's a much deeper thing than that.
Yeah, it really is. When I wrote the Plant Paradox, now it came out 8 years ago now, I made the case that there were kind of two fundamental things going on. First of all, that plants in a lot of ways didn't want us to eat them or their babies because they
Go figure, yeah.
Right? Yeah. They have a life. But more importantly, and it was kind of lost in the discussion, that there were these 7 deadly disruptors of this normal give and take between us and our environment and plants that would protect us from these various plant compounds that, believe it or not, we used to have bacteria that really like to eat gluten, which is in wheat, rye, and barley. And one of the things that's happened because of our hatred of bacteria is we've killed off this balance that was effectively shielding us from compounds that weren't good for us by eating them or otherwise destroying them. In fact, as I talked about in Gut Check, interestingly enough, we know that super old people who are thriving actually have a set of bacteria that are really good at breaking down xenobiotics, things like plastics. And they eat them. And we know that there's oil slick eating bacteria. So the idea that we would have such a wonderful conglomerate of bacteria to handle all of our threats is a good thing. And so this set of thriving bacteria is very much like talking about a tropical rainforest. You could use Hillary Clinton's term, it takes a village. And it takes a combination of interdependent species of bacteria, fungi, viruses that should be in balance. And we could call this, as Anton Beauchamp called our terrain or terroir. And as long as this balance is there between good guys and bad guys, there always should be good guys and bad guys. As long as that balance is there, everything functions well, including that balance, now we realize, teaches our immune system, our white blood cells. And 80% of our immune system lines the wall of our gut. And you go, holy cow, 80% of all my white blood cells are sitting down there in my intestines. Shouldn't they be, up in my nose, or shouldn't they be somewhere else? Well, we now know that that's where mischief comes across. So to get back to your point, we need this really robust, diverse set of bacteria and other guys to handle things we swallow and to tell our immune system who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. And kind of number 3, to tell our immune system normally, hey, you guys relax, go have a smoke and a donut. We've got your back. Anything that's coming down the pike, we'll handle it. And this group of bacteria also fortifies our defense, the wall of the gut, against guys who are coming across. And what's happened now is our gut diversity is just, it's now a desert wasteland rather than a tropical rainforest. So we got nobody to handle folks coming down the line. We now have no set of bacteria that tell the immune system, hey, we got your back. And number 3, we've got a wall of the gut that is porous like a sieve. And so now all these bad guys who normally wouldn't have a chance, or might come through every now and then. They're constantly, coming across this protective lens. And instead of our immune system having a donut and a cigarette, now they've got Kevlar vests, they've got an AK-47, and their finger is on the trigger. And many of us, that's how it feels, right?
So it's like, one of the things you said in the book was, okay, there's this mucus layer that's there to trap the bad guys that are trying to get through. And sometimes if we're not getting enough food for the good guys, they actually start eating the mucus layer and make the situation worse. So it's kind of one of those things where this thing rolls and it gets deeper and darker the worse we let our microbiome get, because the things that would have helped us are no longer there, or they're being degraded. And now we're letting in the bad guys, and we're letting in food particles and all these other things. And our immune system has to go to war. And without the information of even knowing which part is the enemy.
Yeah, I use in the book, I basically say it's basically an untrained militia. Yeah. You should know, who the enemy is. You should know who the good guys are. Everybody with a gun isn't necessarily a bad guy. But if you're an untrained militia, everybody with a gun is a bad guy until proven otherwise. And you shoot to kill and ask questions later. And unfortunately, we're in neuroinflammation and generalized inflammation. We're shooting to kill haphazardly.
Yeah. And now the normal communication between the gut and the brain, which actually happens, is through the vagus nerve. And so what we're finding is that the microbiome is also driving how our metabolism works and how hungry we are and what we want to eat. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's been described now for a number of years, and we're beginning to realize how complex even our eating behavior is and our choices of foods. We've known for a number of years, particularly with animal experiments, that there simplistically are obesogenic bacteria and there are lean bacteria. And we've known that these guys exist from animal experiments. We can give skinny rats poop from obese rats, and they'll become obese. And we can give obese rats poop from skinny rats, and they'll become skinny. And we go, ooh, that's pretty interesting. Well, we now know that it's more complex than that. We now know that these bacteria, whether they're skinny bacteria or obese bacteria, can actually send text messages to the brain telling us to seek out the sort of foods that these bacteria want to eat. And why? Because, as I try to convince people in the book, this is a control system that has existed for millions of years, that really fostered a great human, a great microbiome, and everybody got along perfectly. But now, because everything has been hijacked, we've allowed bacteria that want, for instance, obesogenic bacteria love simple carbohydrates, sugars. They love saturated fats. And they actually, the more they can get you to give them those, the happier they are. The problem is those guys outcompete the good guys, the skinny bacteria, for food. And skinny bacteria can't use those foods. They actually have to have complex carbohydrates, starches, and sugar molecules are all jammed together that the obesogenic guys can't use. So they basically crowd everybody else out, and they kind of take over the neighborhood, if you will. And the fascinating thing is you can actually do these experiments in humans, find out, you're obese because, look, you've got these set of bacteria that, because of the text messages they're sending your brain, you're eating this way. This was actually described long ago. We know that obese people who pal around with obese people share their microbiome. And we also know, and I wrote about this in a scary way, the more you pal around with overweight people, the more overweight you become. And it's actually now we realize that you've been sharing bacteria and you've been colonized by the bad guys just by occupying the space of other fat people. Similarly, skinny people can be colonized by skinny bacteria. Cool.
Yeah, that's the competition. I don't want to put on my skinny friends. One of the things that you got into, because you talked through ways to approach this, because I think a lot of us just think, just flip, just do everything different, and that's going to solve all the problems. But the reality of this is we have to fix the leaky gut problem first.
Yeah.
The dysbiosis first, because if we don't fix the root cause problem, we're basically sending soldiers to a war they're going to lose.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And so you have two programs, one that's general, the other that's a little deeper, that I think you call the chicken in the sea.
Chicken in the sea, yeah.
Okay. And right before we get into that, though, I just wanted to take one step and ask the question as far as fixing all this, because you listed some examples, and there were some fascinating changes that some of your patients have experienced. And phenomenal. Parkinson's and some other things that you just wouldn't even think were related to the gut and the brain. So if you're having any kind of mood or issues with how you feel and how you're eating and what you're doing, it's worth looking at this, because this could be the solution. But these were not like just, I had a good meal and suddenly I felt better. This was a process where they ate a certain way for a year, like months and years.
Correct.
Before they really noticed the true impact of fixing your microbiome. That surprised me, because I was thinking these bacteria only live a couple days, couple weeks, but it can take years to repopulate your terrain, your world.
Yeah, and in fact, I think living in California, going through our fire season, if you burn down a forest, yeah, you can go plant lots of little seedlings, but we'd be naive to think that those little seedlings can make a forest in a few weeks. It will take 20 years to get that complex ecosystem, which is a forest, really back to functioning. Now, long ago, when I started this 25 years ago, I was pretty naive, and I thought we could fix leaky gut in a couple weeks. Boy, was I wrong. We can, thanks to blood tests and even stool tests, we can measure leaky gut. We can quantify it. This is not pseudoscience. A professor of pediatric gastroenterology, who's now at Harvard, Alessio Fasano, was really one of the first people to actually quantify how this happens, how we measure it. And so I do this with my patients, and all of my patients, virtually 100% of them, for whatever I'm seeing them for, have markers for intestinal permeability, leaky gut. And it literally takes most people 9 months to a year to seal their leaky gut. Sometimes less, sometimes more. Now, the good news is we can see progress every 3 months, and we usually quantify this every 3 months. So we can see the progress, but it takes a lot longer. And it's the process of rebuilding this forest. The other thing, thanks to more and more sophisticated measurements of the genetic signatures of this microbiome, we now can get a really fascinating picture, number one, of who's down there, what their relative numbers are compared to each other, who the bad guys are, who the good guys are, if they're there. And we can even measure the products that we talk about, the postbiotics in the book, like butyrate, like acetate. And we can actually, we can measure, how much of this stuff they're making. And what's fascinating to me now that these tests are available is, just like I and others predicted, most of my patients don't have a lot of butyrate and short-chain fatty acid producing bacteria. And tons of them are devoid of this little gut buddy called Akkermansia muciniphila.
Your best friend.
Yeah, my best friend. And so now you can go, son of a gun, no wonder, you're having a problem. And we can then start to introduce these guys. But like I talk about in the book, it's one thing to, put these probiotics in somebody, but you got to give them, number one, what they want to eat, but more importantly, and this has been an education for me, you not only have to give them what they want to eat, but you have to have kind of a assembly line of bacteria where one guy needs X amount of food to eat to produce substance 2. The next guy needs substance 2 to eat to make substance 3, and so on. And it isn't until you get to Akkermansia that if you don't have substance 1, 2, and 3, Akkermansia and other guys aren't going to make butyrate. And so it literally is what Beauchamp, who I introduce in the book, said, you have to have this terrain. You have to have this complex ecosystem, and it takes a while. And so the book is, be patient with me. Like one of my patients recently, I think of the plant paradox, said, you're going to hate me for 6 weeks and then you'll start to love me. And they said, you're right. I hated you for 6 weeks, but now I love you.
So there are basically 2 programs, the base program, and then for people who are really struggling, the chicken and the sea program. Can you talk about what those are and generally how they work?
Yeah. Well, the base program is just every year the plant paradox program, which is taking away certain plant compounds that we can actually measure are mischievous to people. Taking those away, a lot of people, sadly, are sensitive to the various proteins in eggs, egg whites and egg yolks. Many people early on are sensitive to the proteins in dairy, casein, whey, other proteins. And there are kind of a top 12 list of foods that a lot of people are sensitive to. Surprisingly, just throw out a couple that show up all the time, even this week. Lemons. A lot of people are sensitive to lemons. And you can substitute limes. A lot of people are sensitive to white mushrooms. And the good news is you could cook them and desensitize, but that's just an example. Through the years, I've had a number of people who just seem to be incredibly sensitive to plants in general. A salad tears them to shreds. They get cramps and diarrhea. And those people, through the years, I've had them kind of nuke their vegetables to basically kind of soups. And they've done okay, but certain of my patients, I've finally given up and say, look, you're one of my canaries that you just cannot tolerate these plant foods and certain animal foods. And what I've done is ask them to basically give all of this up temporarily. And it's a version of a carnivore diet that uses primarily pastured chicken and wild-caught fish and wild shellfish, and pretty much eliminating plant material. One can argue that plants manipulate us and want us not to eat them. And one can make a very good argument, which I made in Gut Check, that there are certain sugar molecules in beef, lamb, pork, and milk that damage the wall of our gut, damage our blood-brain barrier, damage our brain, and it's got a funny sounding name called New5GC. The good news is we have New5AC, and so do poultry, and so do fish and shellfish. And what I found through the years, I've had a number of people who have felt well on a carnivore diet where they eat mostly beef. But to a person, those people have markers of inflammation on their blood vessels and in their brain. But when I switch them over to having a poultry and fish and shellfish-based diet, those markers of inflammation disappear. And I profile one such gentleman in the book who had really a remarkable turnaround, who was actually a vegan.
Good job. That's no small feat to convince a vegan to go carnivore.
Well, he was a long-suffering vegan. He was, doing the right thing in his mind. Yeah. And but he was miserable for lots of reasons, and now he's happy.
Yeah, but if everything had been working well in his microbiome, a vegan diet would have been fine.
Absolutely.
The fact that it wasn't, so therefore the vegan diet was at that point in time just not right for him.
That's exactly right. I mean, I use the example: you could have the world's best quarterback, but if you don't have an offensive line,
you have Archie Manning.
That's exactly right. And so that's what's happened to really most of us. This really well-designed, worked-out system that's stood the test for millions of years, really in the last 50 years or so, has just been absolutely decimated. And so it's really no wonder to me that all of this is happening. We just don't have those guys anymore.
Well, we became anti-germ, anti-bacteria, anti-anything. We wanted to live in a sanitary world. People won't take their kids and let them eat dirt. And I can't tell you, I probably ate gallons of dirt when I was a kid. So we don't do that anymore.
No, and I talk about that in the book extensively. I grew up in the 50s and 60s, and that was right after the Second World War, and everybody had a victory garden during the Second World War. And my parents, we planted a victory garden, and actually had a victory garden for my kids. And one of the things that you or I remember is we would pull a carrot out of the ground, brush it off on our pants, and eat it. Yeah. We didn't take it inside and wash it, and didn't seem... and none the worse for wear. And there's really fascinating information now about the benefit of the bacteria and the fungi that are living on particularly root vegetables that really, really, really help train our immune system, inoculate our microbiome with soil organisms. And as I've said over and over again, the benefit of having a dog has so many layers, but one of the things a dog does for you is bring all these soil organisms into your home. And it's a huge benefit.
Yeah, and but we don't go out and eat dirt. This program, and whether you do the basic one or you're going to do the more intense one, depending on your situation, you can begin to reverse this. You can rebuild your terrain. You can improve your health. It will likely improve your mood. It will improve all of it. So, I mean, to me, that's the key of this is in your hands to make some changes. You're giving us some ideas here in the book, how to approach this responsibly with patience. And that's what's so cool about this.
Yeah, thank you. This isn't conjecture on my part. I see patients 6 days a week, even Saturdays and Sundays. And when I see a new patient, and I'll be turning 75 this year, they go, "Gee whiz, why are you seeing me?" I said, "Because quite frankly, I learn something new almost every day from you guys. I get to see leaky gut changed. I get to see what happens to you, like this woman who reversed her Parkinson's that starts the book. And, I get to see what I would have called miracles long ago. And so why could I not get up and go see patients, right?
Yeah, I love it. Dr. Gundry, I define wellness as being the healthiest, fittest, and happiest you can be. What are 3 strategies or tactics to get and stay well?
Well, number one, and I say it all the time, take more vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 correlates so well with repairing your gut wall. I can't begin to say. The University of California, San Diego has a big vitamin D research unit. They believe, and it's published, that the average American should take 9,600 international units of vitamin D3 a day. The average American. They've never seen vitamin D toxicity at 40,000 international units a day, neither have I. So, number one, get some vitamin D. And you can't get enough from the sun. 80% of my patients in Southern California, when I first draw their vitamin D, are vitamin D deficient. In Southern California. So that ought to tell you something. Number 2, get a dog. Number 3, if we spent as much time, effort, and money in taking care of the only house that we'll ever live in, imagine what we could accomplish. And this is all we get, as far as we know. And let's put our effort there.
Amen. Thank you for that. Dr. Gundry, if people want to learn more about you, learn more about the book, where would you like for me to send them?
Well, they can come to drgundry.com. They can come to my supplement and food company, gundrymd.com. There's the Dr. Gundry podcast, my YouTube channels, Instagram. And if I don't show up while you're scrolling on your news feeds, waving at you, I've done something wrong.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure to have that in the show notes.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being a part of 40 Plus Fitness.
And great to see you again. Thanks for having me back.
Thank you. Take care.